friends, let's discuss this. So what is an even function? So let's see if I draw a graph of a function. So if I'm saying that I want to discuss an even function, then if my graph is symmetric about the y-axis, I will say my function is even function. What does that mean? Let me draw something. So if I, let's say, draw something like this. Okay. Now what? If I'm saying that my graph is symmetric around y-axis, then how should it look on the other side? This, right? Because you are saying that it is symmetric around y-axis. Okay. What does that mean? That means, let's say, if I have an arbitrary point x over here, and at that point my function assumes certain value. Let's say at this point my function assumes value f of x, of course, right? Now what happens to the equidistant other side, to the y-axis? If I have another point, let's say negative x, then at that particular point also my function value should be equal to my f of x. This is what is happening if I am saying that my function is symmetric about y-axis. It need not be in the first quadrant. Suppose I draw something like this. So if I want it to be symmetric around y-axis, that means it should look like this. So again, this function is what? Even function. And why is it so? Because if I take an arbitrary point x over here, and I have a function value here is f of x, then if I take minus x, okay, equidistant from other side of y, so the function value should again be f of x. Now mathematically, if I want to write the same thing, what should I write? What are you saying? You are saying that the function value at negative x is same as function value at x, right? This is what you are saying. Here as well as here, function value at x is equal to same as function value at negative of x, right? This is what you are saying here. So this is the particular condition. Mathematically you want to check that the function is even function. This is exactly what you are doing here. So let's take some trivial examples. Some functions you might have come across to say that it's a even function, like x square. Is it an even function? You can draw it if you have seen the graph. So you draw the graph and say, yeah, it looks like as if it is symmetric around the y-axis. Yes, it is even function. And if suppose you don't know the graph, you can check with this condition. Because how do you check that? Because you say that, okay, my f of x is x square. I check what is f of minus of x. In this particular rule, I do instead of x minus of x whole square, and what do you get? I get my x squared back. And what is this? This is nothing but f of x. What did you show here? You have shown here that your f of x and f of minus x are the same things. So you have shown your function is an even function. Algebraically you can show, graphically you can show. Any other function? Cos of x, elementary function. If you draw your cos of x, how does it look like? This, right? Again, you can quickly see that it's an even function because it is symmetric around the y-axis. And even algebraically you need to check, go ahead. Because cos of negative x is cos of x, right? That means f of minus x is same as f of x. Because whatever value you take here, the same and equal opposite value, it will take the same function value. So this is what is about even function. Now what is my odd function? Let's see what is my odd function. So what is my odd function? So basically you want the function to be symmetric around origin. So if I draw some function like this, let's say this, I want exactly the same thing but in the opposite quadrant now, like this. Okay, so this pen is not working. Okay, I will draw a little better like this. Okay, so this is your odd function. Okay, so what is happening exactly here? Can you see that if I take an arbitrary point x and my function value over here is f of x, okay, and what I am actually interested in knowing what is my minus of x, and since it is symmetric, you can see that my function value at negative x is nothing, same thing but in opposite sign, right? Its distance is the same but opposite. So it is minus of f of x. If this is my f of x, this is equal and opposite, so minus of f of x. And what did you see just now? You saw that what is happening here? Your f of minus x is nothing but, Okay, so function value at negative x is nothing but minus times the function value at x. So this is your mathematical condition to say that the function is odd, which depicts that it is symmetric around origin. And one more thing, that if my this point is what? X comma y, then what is my this point? Minus x comma minus y, isn't it? If you can show that xy is a point and minus x and minus y is also a point in that function, you have shown that your function is an odd function. And necessarily need not be in the first quadrant, okay? So you may have something like this. How should I draw? Something maybe something like this and something like this, okay? So this is also an odd function, you can see. Same thing, okay? Can you get some basic elementary examples? Y is equal to x, yes. X cube, yes. Minus x cube, yes. Y, let's see. Y x cube should be symmetric, y x cube should be an odd function, because I can draw it and see, because my x cube function, if you draw it, it looks like this, and I can see it is symmetric around origin, so it is an odd function. If not by the graph, I can check using this condition. What do? I say, okay, my f of x is x cube, so my f of minus x is minus of x whole cube, which is nothing but minus x cube. And what is this? This is minus of f of x, right? So you just now check that your x cube function is your odd function, because it follows this mathematical rule. That's enough, okay? Only this much information you need to know about odd and even function, and rest we are good. Okay. So now someone asks me, say, okay, so what about odd function plus an odd function? Is it odd or is it even? So what do I say? I say check it yourself, because if you know that a function is odd, let's say f of x, and if you say another function is also odd, which is g of x, then what do you wish to know? You wish to know that some function phi of x, which is addition of these, is it odd or even? So what do? I just check it, okay? I say that, okay, let me use the mathematical rule, because presently I don't know the graph. I just know that my f of x is an odd function and my g of x is also an odd function. I just insert negative x instead of x. What do I get? I get f of negative x plus g of negative x, right? And then since you are telling me that it's an odd function, what do I know? I know this is minus of f of x, and I also know that this is minus of g of x. So what? This is what? Minus of f of x plus g of x, which is what? Phi of x. What did you see? Of course, this is an odd function, right? Because phi of negative x is minus phi of x. It's an odd function. Now, you can answer yourself. Okay, so if you ask me what is odd plus even, check it yourself. What is even plus even? Check it yourself using the similar thing. Okay, so you said, okay, enough. So can you tell me what is the product? Okay, so if I say that odd into even function, whether it is odd or it is even, what's the answer? You can check it yourself, right? Because now you know everything. Because if I again assume that there is some function psi x, which is product of some odd function f of x and some even function g of x. So if I wish to know whether my phi x is odd or even, what do? I insert instead of x negative of x, and then what do I get? Minus of x, g of minus of x. Okay. Now, since my f of x is odd function, my f of negative x is what? Minus of f of x. And what is g of negative x? Just g of x. What did you get? You get minus of psi of x. So you got that odd function into an even function is an odd function. So similarly, you can try other combinations as well. Odd into odd, you will get it to be even. Just check. Okay, and you can do into even. You will get it to be even. Okay. So you say, okay, so can you tell me composite? Okay, if I compose odd function with an even function, okay, is it an odd or an even function? Again, we are all ready to answer our own, okay, because if I am saying that f of x is an odd function and g of x is an even function, and someone is asking me, okay, so can you tell me what is f of g of x? Is it even or odd? So what I am going to say, no problem. If you want to check, just insert negative x instead of x. What do you get? Since you are telling me that your g of x is even function, your g of negative x is what? it's just g of x because it's an even function. And what did you get? Okay, you just got that this is, okay, so let's call it psi x. Okay, so this is psi x, okay, and this is psi of negative x, okay, and you got it to be psi x. Okay, so you just now proved that it's an even function. Okay, so now whichever, you know, whatever property you want to say about odd even function, what did you just use? You just use the two basic things. Okay, what is an even function? If you replace x by negative x, you get the same function back. What is an odd function? If you replace x by negative x, you get negative of that function back, just that. Okay, so if I am supposed to answer this question, that can you tell me whether this is an even function or an odd function, what do I do? Okay, so let me just say that, let's insert negative x. So now what? So what do I get? Minus x plus root, okay, negative x square, that is same as x square, so I just write it like this. Okay, this doesn't look like as if it is negative of f of x or f of x. Okay, wait, so what can I do now? Maybe I can multiply by the conjugate. Okay, let's see if that can simplify. Minus x, okay, this is on the top, so what do? I multiply by the conjugate of that, because I can use logarithmic property to check whether I can simplify any further. So you get this. Okay, so now what? Now let's simplify it. What is that? Okay, a squared minus b squared formula. So this is x squared plus 1 minus x squared over x squared plus 1 minus of x. Perfect. This gets cancelled. Log 1, okay, so what is, so this is what? This is log 1 minus of log root x squared plus 1 minus x, right? Sorry, plus x. Plus x, okay, this is, you are dividing plus x. Okay, so this is 0, right? Log 1 is 0. So what I end up, you have end up in getting this. Okay, and what is this? This is minus of f of x. Okay, so since it was not trivial, I tried to do it, because even everywhere you can use the same step to show whether your function is an even or odd function. So this is a good exercise which you can try doing and check whether you get that this function is an odd function using exactly the same thing which we just now discussed. Hope it is clear. See you. Bye bye.